All right. In the last part one, we talked about Islam. Now we're going to talk about the spread of Islam. So, spread of Islam. Islam united the various Arab tribes. Remember, we talked about the Arabian Peninsula was a group of tribes that were brought together by Muhammad. So, what they had in common, which made them one group, was their language, which is Arabic, and their religion, which is now Islam. So, they set out on a holy war against non-believers, kind of like the Crusaders. The Arabs were experienced desert fighters who fought with enthusiasm to gain entry into heaven. Just like the Crusaders, they were told that if they fought in this holy war against non-believers, that they would go to heaven when they died. So in contrast, at this time, the Byzantines and the Persians were weakened from fighting each other. So it's a perfect time for this Islamic army to kind of come in and sweep both of those two groups away. So Arab Muslims succeeded in creating a vast empire that extended from the Indus River Valley over here in India all the way across into Spain. So Muslim expansion in Europe was only halted at the Battle of Tours, which we had talked about with the Franks. So here's a good map. So of course it's going to start down here in Mecca, Medina, and then it's going to spread north into the Middle East. They tried to come up into these areas, up into southern Europe. They come all the way across North Africa, and eventually they're stopped at the Battle of Tours. And here's a good map of the Islamic Empire. So, the caliphate, after Muhammad died, Muslims leaders chose a new leader whom they called the caliph, or the successor to Muhammad. 2 caliphs were murdered right off the bat, and a new caliph then founded the Umayyad Caliphate. Sunnis followed this caliph, and this is where you're going to end up with the 2 branches of Islam, because you had a small group of Shiite Muslims that decided only Muhammad's descendants could be caliphs. So the difference between the two is the Sunnis believed that the caliph could be elected among the people, can be chosen, and then of course the Shiites believe that the caliph has to be a descendant, a blood relative of Muhammad. So this is the division between the two groups today. So under the Umayyad Caliph, the capital of the Arab Empire was moved to Damascus, which is in present-day Syria. And after 750, a new family, the Abbasids, took over the caliphate. Abbasids focused on trade rather than war, so they're going away from this holy war. And they built a new capital in Baghdad. So that's why all these cities are holy cities in the Islamic Empire. And of course, Baghdad is in Iraq. So at first, the non-Arab converts to Islam. So if you did not live on the Arabian Peninsula, you weren't Arab. You could be Greek, you could be African, whatever it is. They had less rights than the Arab Muslims. But eventually, all Muslims were treated equal. Muslims treated Jews and Christians with respect, since they were kind of followers under the same God. So they were permitted to have self-governing communities. However, Jews and Christians had to pay a special tax and could not hold public offices. So here's how large the caliphate got. And today what you have is your darker areas are mainly your Shia or Shiites, and then the lighter areas are more Sunni. So most of the area and most of your Muslims are Sunnis, but in Iraq and Iran you have a large group of Shiites, especially in Iran. So the golden age of Muslim culture. While learning was in decline in the West, a golden age of Muslim culture flourished in a period of great advances in culture and technology. So while the fall of Rome completely wiped out Western Europe, the Muslims were really the center of learning. So Arab Muslims absorbed the cultural achievements of the Greeks, Persians, Romans, Jews, and Byzantines. They also controlled a vast trading area larger than ancient Rome had been. So the new Arab Empire, like the Byzantine Empire before it, served as a crossroads of trade. So goods from India, China, Africa, Spain, Eastern Mediterranean entered through Arab territories. This period also saw Arabic, the language of the Quran, and it achieved standardized use throughout the empire and became the language of literature, philosophy, and art. So that made the spread of Islam a lot easier also, is because everyone spoke the same language. And here is some, which is really Persian architecture, but also Arab. So achievements under the Arab rule: mathematics. Arab scholars borrowed the concept of zero from India. They also developed Arabic numerals, which eventually is adapted pretty much by most people. They also had advances in algebra and geometry. Arts and crafts. Muhammad forbid making images of God or of people. And Islamic art was, so what happened is Islamic art mainly becomes geometric designs, flowers, and stars. That's why the art is so different from a lot of different places. So complete opposite of the Eastern Orthodox Church. They also had textiles, leatherworks, and the rugs were end up being the big thing later on. Medicines, they discovered that blood moves to and from the heart, so they figured out blood circulation. They learned to diagnose many diseases, including measles and smallpox. And in architecture, they built beautiful palaces and mosques, which richly decorated with mosaics, which remember that's that cut stone, cut glass. They also had calligraphy and geometric designs.